Hello and welcome to another episode of the Richmond Big Footy Tigercast. I'm your host Michaels, and with me tonight we've got two special guests who are going to help, review the round one win up against Carlton and do a big preview in the grand final replay against the Crows. We'll get to our guests. Our first guest has kissed Courtney Cox, aka Monica from Friends, in Ireland, which I'm sure is going to be a fascinating story. Elton John Zwig, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, cheers, Michaels. Thanks a lot. How are you?
Going well. But I have to ask, how did kissing Courtney Cox happen? That's quite amazing.
I was really keen on this girl from Texas when I was backpacking around the world at the time, and Counting Crows were playing in Galway. And at the time, Courtney Cox was going out the lead singer. So I agreed to go to this bloody concert with this girl and her American mates. And we turned up early and they were doing the sound check. And at the sound desk, there's Courtney Cox. And I said, that's bloody Monica, that's Monica. Let's go and say hello. And, the blokes were all going, no, I won't do that. I said, well, I'm going over. So I went over, had a bit of a chat to her, and she was really nice. And I just said, listen, that bunch over there, they were too scared to come and say g'day. So I'm just going to be a bit cheeky. As I say goodbye, I'm going to give you a kiss. And she just laughed and she goes, no worries. So I've leaned over and I've given her a kiss, and these massive cheers from the other side of the hall. These 4 or 5 American blokes just jumping up and down at the temerity of me having a crack. So told that story times.
Oh, very good. And we've asked you the question for how you became a Richmond fan, so we'll just end on this one. Your favourite grand final moment? I know there was many, but if you had to pick just one.
If I had to pick just one, it would be Prestia's goal in the last quarter, because that's when I broke down. That's when I accepted what was happening. I put it off. All season I put it off, and all game I put it off. And then even now I watch the replay, I struggle with that moment, because that was the moment for me. So it become real.
Ah, very good. And our second guest, this is the two fun facts here are just amazing. Our second guest was once invited to a party and danced supermodel Cindy Crawford. The Chimp, welcome to you.
Thank you very much, Michaels.
I feel like you're just trying to one-up each other with these kind of stories, but how did yours come about?
Yeah, thank you. So what happened was I was living in Sydney at the time, and there was a car that was stranded on the side of the road. So what do? Is go and help out. So I did. And the personal assistant of Cindy Crawford actually said, oh, well, we're having a party at this venue. If you want to come along, why not? Mates and I, we went. Yeah, they were actually promoting the 1995 movie, A Fair Game, really bad movie, gorgeous actress. So anyway, I'm there at the party, no worries, having a great time. And the personal assistant came over and yelled out, oh, there's the Chimp, come over. So I'll go over in the VIP area, and next thing you know, having a drink with Cindy Crawford, chatting, having a great time. She says, come over, let's go and have a dance on the dance floor. So what do? Bust out my very, very bad moves. But, hey, I took advantage of the situation and had a ball.
Absolutely. That's, wow. So sometimes it does pay just to be helpful, like you said, to the people on the side of the road, because you never know who you're going to bump into.
Exactly.
And it's your first time on the show, so first of all, we'll find out, how did you become a Richmond supporter?
Okay, so this is a bit of a difficult one, a little bit long-winded, so I'll try and keep it brief. So I've come from a non-Australian background, Italian family. So mother and father, sisters had no interest in Australian rules football at all. But the only evidence that I have in 1979, there I am in primary school, a photograph with the Richmond top on. So from me getting that top to supporting Richmond, I'm not too sure, but I've been loyal ever since.
It just happened.
It just happened. I'm not too sure, but 1980 certainly would have helped me to get that loyalty going, because having a nice win, and I remember the day clearly. What a great day KB had.
Yeah, he's a superstar. It'd be great to have someone like him in the side again today. And onto your grand final experience. You've actually asked just to change this up a bit, because I believe you have a couple of stories. So your grand final experience, the good, bad and the ugly. So what happened?
Okay, so I'll introduce the good. I mean, the whole day was absolutely brilliant, from starting off drinking very early in the morning with mates, had my son there. But the Hooley goal where we were into the grand final, now it was very early on. We'd been losing, lost and slipped over, a goal against, things weren't looking good. But then once Hooley kicked that goal on his left, curling around to the punt road end, it calmed the nerves, and we said, okay, we're in the lead, we're a shot. My bad experience is we're on level 2A. Last quarter, I was celebrating, hugging random people and high-fiving, and I had my 13-year-old son there, which was absolutely brilliant. But the problem is, being on level 2A, my son was crowd surfing on top of the people, so my parenting skill wouldn't be too good, or it would be quite bad had I not stopped it and got him back onto the firm group. My ugly experience was that we were sitting in 2A, and just on to the left of us were all the retired champions that were on the parade for the day. Also, a lot of the coaches and administration were there as well. They were absolutely brilliant seats. But we were in the toilets, and Alistair Clarkson was at the urinals, and as you do, you try not make eye contact and look away. But we were waiting in the line, and next thing you know, Alistair Clarkson finishes his business, and instead of going to wash your hands, he walks over, puts his hand on me, and he goes, "Thanks, boys." And I'm going, "You dirty, dirty man. Get hands off me. I have even more reason to hate you." So that was my good, bad, and ugly grand final day.
Wow, that is a story. So you'll be really keyed up for round 3 then, a bit of retribution.
Yes. I hope he punches a hole in the wall of the grandstand once again.
Very good. All right, we'll push on to our first topic, the roast and toast. Elton John, you've got the roast this week, and it's one I'm going to actually chime in with as well when you get to the second part of it. So go for it. All
right. Well, the first roast is a quick roast for the umpires. Obviously, we got hammered, and then the AFN says we got gypped. The fact that we're the first game of the year means that we are going to cop it. Hopefully it settles down. The main roast is for Adelaide and Melbourne. If Adelaide last year wasn't bad enough that they book a seat for a cup that they don't win because they're that bloody arrogant, I think they can just rock up and win it. Texas shithouse whole work, so I'm ready to watch them come out and give something. To be 20 points up with one of Essendon's better players out for 3 bloody quarters of the game and chuck it up is piss weak. And Melbourne, you had Geelong cooked. Taylor was off early with his foot. Selwood was on one leg. Stewart was on one leg. You want to be content. You've got to win that. You've got to win that game. I feel for Gawn, but he should have kicked it. But fair income, Lever, I'll pass it over to you.
Lever, wow, where do I start with him? So 4 of us went to the football. One was Geelong, one Essendon, and me and another mate were both Richmond. And we obviously don't like Lever a great deal after his antics on Grand Final towards Jacob Townsend. But when Melbourne gave up 2 first-round picks for him, instantly I thought they've over massively. I don't think he's worth anywhere near that. I thought, we'll see how we go. I know it's only one game, but my God, did he put in a shit one. He was petrified of every contest. Dropped uncontested marks, just pointed at grass the whole day and blamed everyone else. It was a ridiculous game I've ever seen anyone play.
It's good to see Melbourne have got their own version of Brendan Goddard, I suppose.
Pretty much, yeah. And like my mate referred to him, he just prances around like a private schoolboy, just thinking he's top shit, but he's really not that good. He had a couple of good spoils, but outside of that, he was getting smoked by like first-year players. It was just crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing. Lever, if I may interject, Lever, it's amazing. He'd be the best person with kick, or no body pressure, just mark the ball. But as soon as a little bit of pressure put on him, he wilts, doesn't he?
Yeah, we actually made the comment that he would be one of those guys who trains the house session, but then come real opposition, no good.
Yep.
Look, I think he's going to be a very, very, very good player for a long time. But at the moment, he's at his best when it's on his terms. We saw what happened when Townsend went to him. When it's not on his terms is when he struggles.
No, he definitely has to become a bit more of a rounded player. I think he will get there, but I don't know, paying that much that early in his career. I know Melbourne have needs and they've got to fill their own gaps in the list, and that's fine, but I don't know if he can handle being the main man right now. Anyway, we'll push on to the Chimp. You've got the toast week. What have you got for us?
Well, I'd like to toast the Richmond Football Club in the way they unfurled the flag. The whole arrangement was absolutely brilliant. They included the fans. Big Footy's very own Kiwi Tiger. We saw him grace the field, which was great. As I was walking up actually the stadium, they had the flag from Punt Road to the ground. There was Kiwi Tiger. I thought I'd better not go up to him because he was in quite an important duties, but it was great because what they did, they included the fans, those down at Punt Road, everyone in the stadium, but most of all also 11 individuals who had been going through difficult times or had given a lot to the club. So not only thinking of themselves, but they were thinking of the fans. Another good point I thought was that the players have celebrated 2017 premiership. This was for the fans. So now their mindset is for 2018 and try and win another one. So I'd like to toast the club. Well done. I think it was the first that any club has done it this way, and I think others will follow that example.
The only thing I would have liked the club to have changed, and they probably weren't to know this is going to happen, but it kind of looked a bit weird or ridiculous with like, you know, 1.5 metre flag on a 2 metre pole. It just didn't balance out very well, but everything else apart from that was really, really good.
I agree. It should have been probably up on one of those guys and put it up there, put a counterweight down onto the little edge triangle of the flag to make it stand out. But, well, we must do it next year then when we've got our back-to-back flags.
Just make
That's
perfect.
right. We've learned from the first one. No, it was good to see the crowd involved, and like you said, the players completely separate. They've had their celebration. It's time for them to switch on.
That's it.
Before we get into the review of the round one game, I'll just go through the Autopsy Play of the Year award. The votes are in. I tallied them up this morning. So on 5 votes we had Dustin Martin, 4 votes Dan Butler, 3 votes Jacob Townsend, 2 Jack Rewalt and Josh Caddy, and 1 vote for Alex Rance. I won't go into it too. I was really, really pleased to see Dan Butler with 4 votes. I thought he was fantastic, which we'll touch on very shortly. So to the review of the round 1 game against the Blues, in 17-19-121, defeated Carlton 15-5-95 by 26 points. Townsend and Rewalt kicked 4, Butler and Caddy with 3, Castagna 2, and Martin with 1. The Chimp, I'll start with you. What were your thoughts on the game? What did we do well?
Well, we did a lot well, but we didn't do them really well. So just one example that I'd like to give you is our inside 50s. We had 71 inside 50s, the most of any team in the AFL for this round. Now, GWS had 69, and they absolutely thumped the Dogs. So Richmond had 2 more than GWS, yet only won by 26 points. So efficiency would be great, but getting the ball actually into the 50 was absolutely outstanding. They're creating opportunity. Now they just need to clean it up just a tad.
And the first 5 minutes, the first 10 minutes, Elton John, the Blues obviously kicked away with 5 pretty quick goals. How were you feeling after those first 10 minutes?
I was actually strangely calm. I've been a terrible watcher all my life, but I was really calm. And as soon as we kicked our first goal, I just thought, rightio, yeah, we're good. I mean, it just looked like a freak run to me. And I mean, it was, to use Mash's term, we were Carlton's grand final because they're probably not going to play finals. They want to come out and they want to, give us a good show. So they were going to blast. They blasted. They got a couple of lucky ones. We settled. We were right.
Yeah, from that 12-minute mark, just to emphasise the point, a few posters have mentioned on the autopsy board that the scoreline from the 12-minute mark of the first quarter was 120-65. So it was a really dominant display for 3.5 quarters. Just that first 12 to 15 minutes was shellacking, really, Carlton's way.
It was, and I fully expected it, and I almost said as much on the podcast the week before, that Carlton are always going to come out and do that, and they have improved, so I don't want to take anything away from them at all. But I was always doubtful whether they'd be able to do it for 4 quarters. And like you said earlier, Chimp, our inaccuracy is what hurt us. It could have been a massive scoreline, but the fact that we still kicked 121 points when typically early on in the years we'd struggle to kick over 100 was a really good sign.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Even 19 marks inside the forward 50. We've got a short forward line, so everybody thinks we're going to be getting those balls on the ground and snapping for goals and so forth. But we actually had 19 marks. I couldn't quite find out where we had how many shots at goal for those 19, but that's quite a lot. So we created space, created opportunity. So, things are good. Forward 50.
And on top of that, just on top of that, we dominated the inside 50s, we dominated the scoring shots. We were also plus 21 in tackles. So we were working,
which is good because often, we were actually working hard both ways, which was nice as well. And we mentioned him. I mentioned him a bit. He really stepped up in the absence of Dan Rioli. Just his composure, like that goal he kicked on the left foot, running July. He had Cochin on for the pass. It would have been a 50-50 pass, I reckon, because he had some pressure on him. But he just so calmly slotted that goal.
Sorry, go, Chimp.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I was just going to say he improved last year in 2017. He kicked, I think, 35 goals. But he's gone up a level again. Now, you just wonder how much improvement is there to each player before a season starts. Butler does something like that. You just go, wow, where is the ceiling? It's incredible.
I don't think he's near his ceiling. I really think I probably didn't rate him, and I didn't think he was going to make it, but I think he's definitely classier than Castagna. Castagna has got a harder body and crashes contests better at the moment, but he's got hands of stone. I think Butler's so clean, and I think with the three small forwards, when Rioli comes back, I'm not talking this year, but I'm talking medium term, if one's going to make way, I think it'll be Castagna. I think Butler's lock.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree. Just his spatial awareness in traffic is pretty good as well. I mean, I must admit, there has been a couple of times where I felt he was a little bit complacent in traffic, but he's a young player still. He's going to learn, how to get through those things. But he loves to back himself and use his speed, and I reckon that's a great thing to have. And yeah, I agree. I think he's definitely cemented himself in the team.
Yeah, that's it.
Push on to the unsung hero, which is another one of our forwards, and I think he's now become a Richmond favourite, I reckon. I was calling for him to come in, and so was Grockadoc. We were both calling for him to come in pretty early on last year, based on his VFL full loan. But Jacob Townsend, what a I suppose, back end of last year and start of this year he's had. In his last 6 games, he's had 38 kicks with a return of 20 goals and 4 behinds. Chimp, you couldn't script that kind of stuff. 20 goals and 4 behinds from 38 kicks.
No, well done last year for making the call to bring him in, because who would have ever thought he would have been a mid-sized forward, right, and kick that many goals. But not only the goals, but the pressure that he creates. Now, I'll just go back to last year's grand final. I didn't notice it at the game, but more so when I've watched it 25 times that I have. But the second quarter, where it absolutely changed the momentum of the game. 2 crunching tackles. He got a free kick for putting his head over the ball. Now, he constantly does this, yet the opportunities that he does have, the kicks that he does have for goal, he actually makes them a winner. Now, there's not too many other people or players in the AFL that can do that. So we've really struck gold with him at this time.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of a case of that he was maybe played out of position a little bit when he first came across. I know he was a bit more of a midfielder at the Giants, but we don't sort of have that full-time need for him. But yeah, his goal kicking has been amazing.
Yeah, not only that, right, as Chimp was saying, a couple of contests, every contest he goes into, if there's 2 people coming from different directions, he doesn't give any ground. He physically hurts people, like really, really old school physically hurts them. And I actually think the opposition are thinking about him sometimes now. Not only that, when he first came into the team last year, he was given the job, and he shut down Johnson at Fremantle, he shut down Carlisle, he shut down Lever. He actually nullifies opposition as well as giving us scoreboard pressure. He does a job both ways.
Yeah,
and that's why, to me, he's undroppable, because who else can really come in and do that? Like, he's prepared to sacrifice his own game, but he's also a smart enough player to get in the right spots to take a few marks himself. And like you said, Chimpy, he's the man. If you want someone kicking for goal after the siren, he's the one you want with the ball.
Yeah.
It's just been unbelievable. And really, mid last year, I mean, there's a lot of reports out that he was in Adelaide speaking to Sandford clubs about playing there next year because he wasn't confident at all of getting another contract with the Tigers. So full credit to him and the coaching staff for turning around and becoming a really important part of the team.
Yeah, it was quite brilliant. Elton, just to emphasise your point where you were mentioning about players are looking out and looking sideways, where is he? In the 70s, 80s, that would have been classed as somebody who hits you behind play or something like that. But here we've got Townsend who just goes straight for the ball. And if you're in your way, well, you're going to get hit legally, which is great because it gives intimidation that we didn't have for quite a while in our team.
No, and I think that was part of Lever's problem on the weekend, is he was still looking for Townsend at every contest.
Well, I guess it was his first game at the MCG, so I guess there's bad memories there.
It most definitely was. Okay, we'll push on to the round 2 banner, which was once again the made by Koch's King. And there's been absolute rippers this week. I couldn't wait for this one. I'll go first with one that I had. It would simply just say, missing persons unit. Have you seen Eddie Betts, Josh Jenkins, Taylor Walker? Last seen Friday, 29th of September.
Very good.
That'd get a pretty good reception in front of an Adelaide crowd, surely. Did you have one, Chimp?
Well, I'm good at poetry or rhyming, so I actually got one off the board. So shout out to Foley 41, and as your little photograph says, booyah. Okay, it's got the greatest footy club of all time, close to 90k members we rate. You're the second most popular team in Australia's least popular state. Not only did you bag out Adelaide Crows, but you also gave it to Port Power. The ability to have a crack at a whole state, well done, Foley 41.
That's very good. Elton John, have you got one yourself?
Oh, not as good as that. I keep your empty plain seat for the cup and your piss weak power stance. We'll keep the 17 premiership led by Koch and Jack and Rance.
That's straight to the point.
Excellent.
And booking an extra seat on a plane, that's just ridiculous. There's one more I've got here that I want to read that was posted by Harry the Tiger, which I thought this one was quite good as well. You performed your power stance, led by Taylor Walker. We would have been more frightened if you kicked a goal in the second quarter. That's savage, but no, I thought that was quite good, Harry, so well done on that one. Alright, we'll move on to the big preview of round 2 versus Adelaide, the grand final replay. The Crows, I think, no doubt, they're going to be out for some serious revenge. Playing in Adelaide, the crowd's going to be probably the most hostile crowd ever seen a footy game. They lost to Essendon on Friday night by 12 points after leading by 24, as per Elton John's earlier roast. And especially with Essendon being one player down, I mean, they really shouldn't have dropped that game. There's just no excuse for it. But one thing that stood out for me in that Essendon-Adelaide game was the Crows, again, really suspect any time any small amount of pressure was applied by Essendon. So I don't think Essendon were ever as manic as what we were in the grand final, but the Crows still crumbled a little bit under that kind of pressure. But I will say Bryce Gibbs, he was pretty good for the Crows. A really good first game. 35 disposals and 2 goals, and he's definitely one to keep an eye on. Elton John, what are your thoughts on the game?
I think the key for us, again, is just what you've pointed out. It's sustained pressure. And now last year when we went over there, we were good for a quarter and then we got blown away. Obviously in the grand final, we did what we did. So I believe we go over there now believing that if we do what we do well, we're right in it up to our eyeballs. So
yeah, they will have that sense of belief about them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we really did believe at the start of last year because we were learning as we went, so to speak. But the key for me is that sustained pressure, and I don't think it was, as Chimp said, I don't think it was super against Carlton. We certainly need to play a lot better than what we did against Carlton. But Adelaide know it's coming. They know it's coming, so they have to deal with it if we do it right.
And Chimp, your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, just reviewing the Essendon-Adelaide game. I'm just trying to balance out, was it Essendon's pressure and game plan, or was it fitness? This is a tough one because I didn't see any cramping up, or I didn't see any of the Adelaide Crows guys struggling. But that's the thing you've just got to watch out for. So round 2, I guess they're getting more miles in their legs. Adelaide crowd, they've got a point to prove. So it's definitely going to be hot in the kitchen right at the start. We cannot give up 5 goals again. That would be astronomically bad if we were to do that. So how do you get the heat out of the game? Well, I guess you hold on to the ball and put lots and lots of pressure on to Adelaide Crows. Their forward line will be interesting. Does Tex come back? Does Lynch come back? That changes things up once again. We've proved to them that we can beat them at their game. Can we do it again?
Yeah, I think the Walker and Lynch one's an interesting one. There's a lot of mixed reports about the fitness of Tex, and part of me thinks they might be keen to put him back in simply because they feel they need to get their first win on the board, because once you start, if you start off with 2 losses, it's not necessarily a long way back, but it's not where you want to start after, coming off a grand final. The other concern, well, it's not really a concern, but the second ruck issue, I think, from last week carrying into this week again is going to be an issue, because Cruz is a great ruckman. I think he's one of the better ones in the comp, but Sam Jacobs is probably a next level again. And I know it worked fine in the grand final, but I'm not sure if it's something we can keep persisting with against these quality ruckmen. Elton John, what are your thoughts on the second ruck issue given the quality of Sam Jacobs?
Are you doubting our premiership ruckman, Sean Grigg?
Sean Grigg, I know. He does an okay job, but it just scares me trying to do it week after week. Because one, you don't want him to get injured, but 2, when you've got the real quality ruckman, it is a lot easier for them to dictate play.
Yeah, look, I actually did notice last week that when Nankervis was off, that the difference was palpable. Like, it was really noticeable. I just don't know if we've got an option at the moment, though. Who do you bring in? They've got to be of a certain quality as well, and they've got to be up to AFL standard. And to be able, because this is Adelaide, this is not practicing a second ruck against North Melbourne or Freo. This is Adelaide. I'd rather take in the tried and tested Grigg, and he gives you that extra midfield anyway, than go in with a half fit Soldo or an underdeveloped Soldo in comparison.
Yeah, I guess what the main the match committee would be looking at is, okay, if a situation where Nank goes down or doesn't play very well, can you still win the clearances? And that's the key. Do you allow them to win the clearances and then try and have a man back where he's able to defend, or do you try and win the clearances off the hands off others? We see when they play Freo and also West Coast with Nit-Nat and Sandilands, the amount of times that Richmond played off them. Do we do that again? Because Sam Jacobs is an outstanding ruckman. Could have been All-Australian last year.
Yeah, I now that you sort of said that, Elton John, that's probably fair enough to run with what we know works in this kind of game against such a good side that's already well-drilled as it is. But if someone like a Callum Moore come in, he could maybe not send a square bounce. I think that's a bit of a different story, but at least he might be able to add a bigger body around the contest with the stoppages potentially. But it's still a brand new player coming in to do it, so it's probably a bit hard to expect him to do all that.
I definitely think it's something we have to maybe play with in a couple of games through the year, because long term we have to do something. I agree with you 100%. I'm just not sure that this week's the week.
The other player for us who's probably going to get another big job again is Jack Graham, who obviously had a fantastic game in the grand final against Rory Sloane. Last week he had 101 pressure points and 13 tackles against Carlton. So once again, you expect him to be right amongst it, and I've got no doubt he'll get the role on Sloane. Although if Gibbs starts causing us headaches, he could very well get shifted over to him. How important is Jack Graham to the team, despite being so young and only played 6 games? Or 7 games, whatever it is now.
Yeah, a 6-game player should not have this responsibility. What it shows is captain in the future. He's outstanding. Now, when you mentioned there, Michael, about the 101 pressure point acts, The next two best players were Cochin and then Cripps at 52 and 51, respectively. Now, double the amount. It just goes to show that this guy is ready for the contest. This is a really big level. Grand final was big level. This is another one of those. We've got a mad Adelaide crowd going after him. So once again, he's just got to do those things of running back and forth and also tackling and pressure. That's what we need, because we need to break up the game of the Adelaide Crows, because once they start flicking it around, confidence, that's when they'll win this.
And this might sound awful and I might get hammered for this, but against Carlton, I actually didn't really notice Jack Graham a hell of a lot, and I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I was actually a bit surprised when I saw the stats, but I suppose I might have been more looking for maybe disposals and things like that. But yeah, his pressuring game is quite outstanding, and when watching the replay, the job he did on Cripps after he was getting a bit more dominant was quite good and really helped us in that second half. Elton John, I want to ask you about the Crows' tall forward. That's probably going to be their best chance of beating us. They got some quality players. Like, take away what happened in the grand final, we know they didn't have a good day. But if Tex comes in, Lynch comes in, they got Jenkins, then they got Eddie Betts, at their feet. Are we going to have our hands full if they all get going?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's what I expected on grand final day. So the fact that it didn't work on grand final day, I mean, it worked fine in round 6 last year. It's such a multi-dimensional forward line, like everyone laughs about Jenkins getting the goals out the back, right? But you've got Lynch and Walker leading up, which allows Jenkins to go out the back. And then you've got Betts at ground level. It still scares me looking at it now. I certainly don't think that it's a lay down misère when we play the Adelaide Crows. If they both come in, we're in real trouble over there, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yep, absolutely. And we'll move on to some of the key matchups, because we'll touch on a couple of those players. The first one I'll ask you about, Chimp. Dylan Grimes versus Eddie Betts. Grimes has obviously had big jobs for us in the past. How do you think he's going to go on?
Well, last time they played a grand final day, he was outstanding, Grimes. If you were to purely look at statistics, Betts had a few more kicks than him and so forth, but Grimes stopped him. He got a cheap goal, Betts. He probably should have got a goal in the goal square, Betts, at the punt road end, and I think BT still might be calling to the umpire that he's getting his hand held, but hey, we'll take that one. Dylan Grimes, he does a job against the talls and also the smalls. Very, very quick, does his job and helps the structure. If he can break even, because Eddie plays to another level at the Adelaide Oval, if Grimes can break even, there's a long way to us winning this game.
Absolutely, and Elton John will put this one too. David Asprey versus Josh Jenkins. I did initially have Tex Walker, but I'm not 100% if he's going to play or not. Assuming if Tex doesn't play, surely that's the matchup for Asprey's on Jenkins.
Yeah, I think it is, and I love Dave. The probably concern I've got there is the mobility. Like, Jenkins does turn around and double back quite well, and I think David Asprey's a bit more truck-like in his mobility. So it might be that is a concern for me.
I suppose it is a concern. The mobility is right, but one thing I suppose we have done to kind of help counteract that is our ability to cover one another when they can swap defenders around, and no one seems to look very lost in traffic. So hopefully, if Jenkins does get on his bike, that we can just sort of swap players around and cover for him.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, so we've also probably got Rance with an opponent, but ready to peel off at a moment's notice as well.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And Chimp, Jack Rewalt versus Daniel Talia. It's probably an obvious matchup, I guess. Maybe it isn't so obvious to Adelaide people, but from my end, it looks like that's going to be the one. Talia's a pretty decent backman in his own right, and more often than not, I found that Talia's gotten the better of Jack. But think Jack's becoming a lot smarter and working a lot harder, pushing up the ground a bit more. How do you see that one panning out?
Yeah, I agree with you there, Michaels. Talia would probably have the points on the amount of times that they played against each other, but that grand final, Jack was outstanding, springing his step, creating so much space for the other players, and kicking a few goals as well, which was absolutely brilliant. Talia certainly doesn't run off as a defender. He's your stock standard, stick to your man, and punch that ball away. So I guess Jack's got to be creative. He's got to run up and down, create space for other players. This might need to be a sacrifice for Jack and bring Townsend and Caddy into the game a little bit more. But it will be a really interesting battle how this one goes.
Yeah, I've always thought whenever he plays against Talia, he can't afford to be stationary because, like you said, Talia will just cut everything off and spoil it all away. So if Jack's on his bike and sacrifices his game, like you said, it's going to give someone else a chance. And even if that meant isolating Dusty down forward, or a chance to get a bit of a mismatch, and who knows what can happen with Dusty in the goal square.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It's funny. I think you're reading my notes. The notes I wrote for that were you can't be still and you can't run in straight lines.
Yeah, it's too predictable.
Yep. For Talia, that's what he wants. And so if Jack is moving but not in straight lines, that'll work.
And Elton John, on the last one we'll talk about is Daniel Butler versus Rory Laird. I think Laird stepped up a little bit in the absence of Brodie Smith with their rebounding off half back, so he seems to be a bit more dangerous now. And on the flip side, Butler's been very dangerous for us. I'm not sure if they'll go head-to-head directly, but I think they're both going to be vital for both teams.
Oh, absolutely. And when you wrote this down in the run sheet, I actually put a question mark of Townsend question mark for Laird as maybe to stop that run out of the half back. Butler is, as I said, he's cleaner and classier now, and he's extremely quick. He runs both ways. If he does play on Laird, I think he'll take away Laird's time for disposal, which is what we want, because if we give, that first quarter of the grand final, Laird was orchestrating everything from half back. And that's what we don't want. We can't give time and space. We can't allow the cheap possessions. We've got to keep the pressure up. And Butler and Castagna and Bolton will all be very important in quelling the distribution from the half back line.
Yeah, and it starts from there, doesn't it? Because if he gets those easy possessions, that's when we're going to get exposed in the defence half of the ground as well.
Yeah, reviewing the game with Essendon, it was amazing the amount of times Laird actually rebounded out of 50, and I just had a quick look, and it was 8 times that he got out of 50 on Friday evening. So what we need, would you suggest that you have a half forward just basically defending Laird, pretty much where he goes, the defender goes, or the forward defensive player? So I don't know if I would have Butler on him, because I think Butler's so much more creative, but Castagna might be the person to run with Laird.
Possibly. Whoever it is just has to keep a close eye on him, because the ball's going to go through him, and we can't afford to let them set up easily from the back half. But once again, the forwards, similar to our defenders, work as a unit as opposed to individuals, so it kind of will almost be whoever's closest will also kind of pounce on him and try and shut him down, I guess. Push on to the possible changes for us this week. Based on the game, I think Corey Ellis and Conker might make way. I think Hawley's going to definitely come back in. I reckon he could have played last week, but they just went on the side of caution, which is fine. Prestia, I'm not too sure if he's going to come back in. It doesn't sound like he will. And Bolton's the other one who didn't have the greatest of games, didn't register a tackle, which, based on our game plan, is a bit of a concern, but I think he'll get an extended run. Chimp, what do you think our changes might look like?
Yeah, I agree with you with Hawley. Whether we were talking about a second ruck, whether we bring in a more mobile second ruck and let Greg play his natural game. So they're probably the changes. Corey Ellis, unfortunately, this guy, he just needs a bit of time, and he's just not getting it at this present time. We've got such a good squad that if you don't play well, see you later. What do you think, Elton?
Yeah, I was reading, that's a very, very interesting thread, the Ellis thread on our board. And I can see both sides. And there was a quote from Meatball, and I should have written it down. It was something along the lines of, he's always sees rainbows or something, but he's starting to lose faith in the Ellis train. You brought up some stats before about Graham, Chimp. I think, would you say 101 pressure points?
Yep, that's it.
Right. His desperation, he's not really fit yet, Graham. He's still got the puppy fatty look about him. He's not hard, but he repeat effort all the time. And I know that there was occasion on the weekend where Ellis did 4 in a row. I also saw him when we needed someone to lead up and he was by himself without an opponent, standing in space and not... I just think he lacks the urgency, and I think against Adelaide we can't afford that. I think he's the one that has to come out. And I hope he makes it. I'm not going to sit here and bash Ellis till the cows come home. I hope he makes it, but I don't think he can play this week.
All right, so we all reckon Ellis for Hooley will be the initial straight swap?
Yep.
Yes.
And Callum, do you reckon, is Callum Moore the other one who could be a chance? I know Mopesy wrote this on one of the threads, I think, reviewing the Adelaide game. And I agree with him that at some stage we have to try him, but I don't know at who the expense of. So it could be Conker. I don't think it definitely won't be Bolton. They'll definitely keep him in. But did Conker do enough, do you reckon, to keep his spot?
Well,
you go, Elton.
Defensively, he did. He laid 7 tackles. He was good on that side of thing, but I think he had 5 clangers, maybe 6 clangers. You just want him to handball it, not kick it. I think we could. I don't think we will. We could potentially sacrifice a Conker because I think our medium-sized midfield / forward halfback flankers around the ground we've got enough of. And Moore's actually quite athletic. I did notice in the JLT games he moves pretty well, and I think fitness-wise he's up to it. So I wouldn't have an issue if it did happen.
Yeah, I guess Conker, what position would he be playing against the Crows? And I guess it would be the half-back line. Does he have somebody that he's going to be playing against at a specific role? Or is it just going to be the freelance and try and drive it forward? They're the things that you've just got to try and work out. What is the best thing for him? Could we get Brandon Ellis to go back, Vlosten and Hooley to do that job instead? Because I guess it's important to remember who is going to be the forward that comes in if there is a change in the forward line, because Tex and Lynch certainly changes the dynamics on that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit of a headache this week, which is nice to have selection issues. All right, and before we wrap it up, we'll get a prediction from both of you for the game. So, Elton John, I'll start with you. What's your prediction for the game this week, including margin?
Look, I'm a bit like Meatball. I like to see rainbows all the time, but I think Adelaide will win. I think it'll be 23 points. I just think with the home crowd, the home game, the anger from last year, I think we'll give a good account, but I think they'll get the points.
Look, I'd probably agree with you if Richmond hadn't won the premiership, but it's amazing after winning a premiership how it changes your perspective in life. So, look, I think it will be a really, really tight game. 12 points, I think, we could win. We're no more than winning each quarter by a goal or a few points. I think it's going to be tight. We're very settled. We're happy. We can win this game. We played quite well at the Adelaide Oval as we did against Port Adelaide last year. Really, really important that we have a good start, but we continue it on this time rather than last time where we had a great start but just failed from the second quarter on.
Yeah, I reckon the guys obviously are going to be very well aware that it's going to be a pretty hostile and hard and fast game, but I reckon they're going to take that in their stride and they'll be well and truly up for it and see it as a massive challenge. And like you said, I don't know, just their mindset, they're enjoying themselves, and they'll see this as a massive a massive chance to just troll Adelaide, really, by going back home to Adelaide and beating them and making them look stupid again. So I reckon we might get up by about 16 or 17 points. But no matter what, I think it's going to be a great game and it's going to be pretty fiery. But that could work against Adelaide. They might get too over-emotional about it all and get too fired up, and they might just lose the plot.
Well, I hope you're both right.
Yes, so do I.
And as Redhead just sent a message through, kick straight, please. Absolutely. If we get some scoreboard pressure on them early, it's going to change the game dramatically. So hopefully they just keep getting it to Townsend, because he's bound to kick more goals than points for us. All right, well, that just about does it. Just make sure you subscribe to us on iTunes and Spreaker and YouTube. And thanks for all the tweets and everything coming through. Actually, we did have... I'll go through... There was one question. A tweet came through from Josh Reese, who is a mate of mine, so I'll read it out for him. Can the Richmond train be stopped? He reckons it wasn't a question, but it is a question. So, can the Tigers be stopped? If so, by who?
Themselves. Isn't... Normally it is yourself. You get a little bit cocky. You think you rule the world. We just need to make sure that our feet are firmly planted on the ground and realise that we're not perfect and we still need to strive, and you never know what we can attain.
Absolutely. No, I think we're in a good mental place.
Well, if we do beat Adelaide this week, if you want a seat on the train, you'd want to hop on pretty bloody quick.
No, it'll be a no ticket for you scenario.
Yeah. Are there any tickets left? Dwayne Russell asked if I could get him one, but I don't think there's a ticket for him then.
All right, and there's one more question from TJASTA, and this is for Elton John's wig, and only a handful of people even understand what this means. But who will be first to six, the Furies or the Wanderers?
Clearly the Wanderers.
All right,
100%. And TJASTA is fast becoming one of my favourite posters. So thanks for the question.
Okay, well, thanks again, guys, for coming on. The Chimp and Elton John's wig. A pleasure having you both on. Just a reminder to everybody, the game is on Thursday, the 29th of March at Adelaide Oval, live on Channel 7 and Foxtel from 7:30pm. Thanks again, guys, for coming on, and until next time, go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Yellow and black.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Richmond Big Footy Tigercast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and YouTube so you can follow all the roast and toast, the reviews and previews, and all topics Richmond. Also keep an ear out for our special episodes of interviews with past players. Go Tigers.